All right, well, we have 5 minutes, and so we're just experimenting with this. I don't know. I think my brother had everybody muted when he did. He used a different program called Blue Jeans, which is a very sophisticated name for a computer program. And and he told me he muted everybody. So I'm following his lead. That's my excuse. And what we're wanting to do is to provide um, a way to continue to have our Bible study and sort of meet together. Now, towards the end, I think I might be able to close the microphones or enable the microphones, and then you can chat with one another. But one of the things that I've experienced with Zoom when I've been in meetings is that different ones will jump in and start speaking, and it takes over the screen. So then you end up with a sort of a little bit of confusion in meetings. It's a little hard to follow who's doing what. And I thought for this, hi Rob, you can hear me okay? I assume. I thought that it would probably be best just to work with me. Now, if you do have questions, I have my iPhone right here. And so if you wanted to text me, I think that'll work. There is also a chat function on Zoom, which I don't understand, and in theory will work. Kaylee told me about it this morning. I thought, oh no, something new. So maybe she's showing me. I'm not sure. She's doing something. These kids and their computers. Anyway, so as soon as it hits, got another minute or so, I think we'll go ahead and get started. And I have I sent you the link to the handout. So hopefully you either printed it out or you don't care, one of the two. That's the way it will be. And what we've been doing is we've been working through eschatology, talking mainly about the points concerning the premillennial, premillennial pre-tribulational position. But as I was looking back through my notes over the last, well, from many years ago, these are from the 1970s, these notes. And they are, I started reading through them. I thought, this is really good material. And so I should share it with everybody. And that's what I was planning to do once we were able to meet together. And then I thought, well, let's do it on Zoom. Let's just try and see how that works. And so what I've decided is start at the beginning. And the beginning is the syllabus for Old Testament prophecy. Now, in these notes, part of the notes are derived from a syllabus put together by Dr. Stuart Custer, who was the chairman of the Division of Bible at Bob Jones University. And then part of the notes are my lecture notes from Jesse Boyd, who was the pastor of Mount Calvary Baptist Church for many years, and also one of my professors. I tried to take everything I could from Jesse Boyd. And so you'll have a combination. Those are the two sources, and then just my memory and whatever else I come up with as we speak. And so we're going to start here, and I'll give you, we'll move into the first slide. And the first thing I want to talk about is vocabulary. And we'll just go through some definitions here. And so just, first of all, a syllabus. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see all of that because of where the monitors or the screens are. Maybe I have to minimize everybody's faces. Let's see what happens. Yes, you can see the whole screen that way, and but you can't see anybody else. So I'm going to proceed in faith that you're there. You'll have to text me to make sure that anything's getting through. All right, so we're going to start with a definition of a syllabus. A syllabus is a concise statement of the main points of a subject, an outline of a course of study. So that's what this document that I'm going to be working from is. It's a concise outline, and I think you'll find it helpful in understanding the subject of Old Testament prophecy. And the next definition, oh, by the way, okay, our notes for this study are in syllabus form. I forgot that I don't have a preview of what's coming next, the way this is showing up on the screen, so I'm sort of flying blind. I have no idea what's coming up next. Maybe I have something planned that I don't even know. All right, so the next definition that we're going to talk about is apocalypse. Apocalypse is a revelation of divine mysteries. Now I want to add the definition of prophecy next. A prophecy is a communication of divine message, and I want to pause here for just a second to explain the difference between the two. So, for example, Daniel, the prophet Daniel, is mostly apocalyptic. He's revealing things that were previously unknown. So you have that image of Nebuchadnezzar where he has the head of gold and the chest of silver, the legs of bronze, or whatever it is. You know how it goes. And all of that is revealing something about history. It was something previously unknown, but it was revealed to Daniel about what was to happen. So that's apocalyptic. Whereas prophecy is a communication of divine message. In a sense, apocalypse is a subset of prophecy. For example, in Isaiah, you have a lot of prophecy where God has a message for Moab, or has a message for Egypt, or he has a message for Israel, and he'll be saying, "Thus saith the Lord," and you better straighten up and fly right. You can sum up all the prophets with that. Yeah, you better straighten up and fly right. But there's a section of Isaiah called the Little Apocalypse, and I believe it's Isaiah 24 through 27, if I remember the references rightly. So there he's revealing something that is hidden, something that we don't know. So when you come to the book of Revelation in the New Testament, it's apocalyptic. It's an apocalypse because it's a revelation of divine mysteries, things that previously were unknown. Whereas prophecy, properly, is a communication of a divine message. God has something to say in prophecy, and he wants us to learn it. The next definition, eschatology, the doctrine of last things. This has a Greek roots. Eschatos means last. Logos is word, so a word about the last things, or the doctrine of last things. And so this is what we're going to be talking about in this class. And then millennium, a Latin roots in this one. Mille is 1,000, annus or annum is a period of 1,000 years. So that one I think is fairly obvious. The rapture, it's a term that we use a lot. It's the act of transferring a person or persons from one place to another. So when you have somebody's in raptures, they have been transferred from the state of I guess depression, such as we have right now with the virus situation, and they have been made joyful. They're in raptures. You see what they've been transferred in the sense to a new state. Well, that's the word rapture means the act of transferring somebody from one side to the other. So Wolf is sending me not to distract me, but he is distracting me. No problem. And this is what we see. Good. You can see the screen. I hope you can hear me as well. So he gave me a picture of the screen, which is what I'm wanting him to see. All right. Now, next definition, the kingdom. The kingdom is the territory, people, state, or realm ruled by a monarch. So we're going to use the term kingdom a lot in discussing Old Testament prophecy. And the thing is that it is sometimes it refers to the territory, sometimes to the people, or sometimes even to the state or realm. And so that's where can be some confusion over the term kingdom. All right, well, that's the definition. So we're going to look now at the contents of the syllabus. Now, this is at the beginning. of the syllabus. So I'm just going to quickly cover this. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this particular point. But the introductory material, there's it looks pretty imposing, 8 points under introductory material. We're going to be mostly talking about point A, the content of prophecy today. I don't know, I think I'm not going to quite finish that point, but the content of prophecy. And then the definition of a prophet will be next after that, the succession of prophets, the character of Old Testament prophecy, the interpretation of prophecy, the fulfillment of prophecy, the false prophets and the true, the covenants and the dispensations. And so that will be introducing the material of Old Testament prophecy. The second section of the syllabus is the messianic and eschatological prophecy of the Old Testament. And you'll see that it's broken down according to the various sections of the Old Testament books. So Pentateuch, historical books, poetical books, prophetical books. It's just going to follow through and discuss aspects of prophecy in those areas. There's also a thing at the end about the bibliography. Now, I may type up the bibliography early. I would have to say this bibliography was current in the 70s. So we've had a few years that have passed since that time, just a few. And so this bibliography, I mean, it's not out of date. Probably a lot of the books are out of print. But if you are interested in reading more, the bibliography might have some value to you. So I'm going to work at typing that up, and then we'll share that with you as we go along. All right, so that's what this course is all about. Let's move on to the content of prophecy. And we're going to start, first of all, with the scope of the terms. So prophecy would refer to all occurrences of the phenomenon, any prophetic statement of any kind. So we're going to, now that seems kind of, what is he talking about? Well, the next couple of points will make this clear. So for example, there's extra biblical prophecy given by such men as Roger Bacon and Jules Verne. And they would be they made prophecies. Jules Verne prophesied all kinds of things in science. I'm not quite sure about Roger Bacon. I don't recall reading his literature, but in any case, that's prophecy outside the Bible. It may or may not be true, obviously. But biblical prophecy then refers to all prophecy in the Bible. So the term prophecy, at the beginning of the point, would refer to all occurrences of the phenomenon. So any kind of statement of about the future would be considered a prophecy. So we're talking about biblical prophecy, of course, in discussing Old Testament prophecy. And it comes into two categories. First, fulfilled prophecy. So in Isaiah, for example, there are things that are said about the coming of Assyria to defeat Israel. And there's also the coming of Babylon prophesied. Cyrus is mentioned. That's even Persia is mentioned in the book of Isaiah. Cyrus is mentioned by name. So that's fulfilled prophecy. And of course, many of the prophecies about the Lord Jesus is fulfilled. And then unfulfilled prophecy, fulfillment expected in the future. So these are things that have not yet taken place. They're prophecies about things that have not yet taken place, but they're expected in the future. A parallel term for unfulfilled prophecy is eschatology. We used that earlier, the study of the events of the last days. So that is, and by the way, a true eschatology attempts to account for all the prophecies set forth in the Bible. And I think we should pause here for just a moment to talk about that idea. When we, often what happens when people go a little sideways in prophecy, and when they begin to develop strange ideas is that they're not taking into account all of what the Bible has to say about prophecy. So people will tell you about certain things that they've figured out, and they'll show you some proof text. And it may sound a little bit strange concerning what you have learned in the past about prophecy. And the problem is that they might be zeroing in on one passage, but not taking into account all the other passages that have to do with prophecy. So a true eschatology, a biblical eschatology, attempts to account for everything. This is where, because the Bible is such a vast book and has so much information, this is where we have to be a little bit humble about our own eschatology. We come to conclusions, we have a certain way of looking at things. We do have to be humble because none of us has the mind of God, and we can't possibly hold in our mind everything the Bible says at all times. And so with our doctrine, this is true of any part of doctrine, but especially true of eschatology. With our doctrine, we do have to hold it humbly. Certain things are absolutely clear in Scripture, but then, maybe we work out our understanding of the whole system, and we do have to be humble about it because we don't necessarily have the whole thing in our head just properly lined up. We do have to be careful. All right, and then the other point on this is the main subject of study in the present course. We're mainly going to be talking about unfulfilled prophecy. The fulfilled prophecy we might touch on incidentally as we go along, but the main thing we're going to talk about is unfulfilled prophecy. And then the study of certain topics, such as messianic prophecy, may overlap several of the above categories. Obviously, some of the things that we touch on with respect to messianic prophecy, the virgin birth, the crucifixion, things like that, are going to be things that are fulfilled. But then some of these same passages may speak about something in the future which have not yet been fulfilled. And so this is where this study of prophecy is going to take us. We're going to be covering quite a bit of territory. All right, next. The main theme of prophetic revelation is the coming universal kingdom of Jehovah. So, well, I guess we should to explain that, we should just work our way through. This includes the coming king, the Messiah, who is the sovereign of the kingdom. By the way, I put that in yellow here on the screen. I believe on the handout, if you printed it out in color, it's in purple. But the idea that some of these things come from my lecture notes, and some of them come from the syllabus. So Dr. Custer, where his point was the main theme of prophetic revelation is the coming universal kingdom of Jehovah. Then under that, this includes the coming king. Well, my professor, Jesse Boyd, loved alliteration. And so in this section, we're going to have some alliteration. And the sovereign of the kingdom, this is how we're going to have alliteration with S this time, Dr. Custer would say. But the sovereign of the kingdom is his summary of the coming king, all right? And you'll see, if you look down on your sheet, you'll see how he's got 3 S's here in these 3 points. Anyway, we're going to talk about the coming king, first of all. So prophecy may be directly messianic. And I've given you all 3 of the subpoints here right away. The prophet had in mind the Messiah or the kingdom itself. So when he was prophesying, he was either talking about the coming kingdom directly or the Messiah directly. This would be something that he explicitly was talking about. And the prophecy may correspond exactly to the history of the Messiah. And so I have that verse, Zechariah 9:9, on the screen for us. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and endowed with salvation, humble and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a donkey. So this is a directly messianic prophecy. And we know that this exactly happened. There was that great excitement on Palm Sunday when Jesus was entering Jerusalem, and he was mounted on a donkey, and the people were laying down the palm branches and putting their robes in front of him as if welcoming a king. And that prophecy was literally fulfilled. Zechariah offered that hundreds of years before Jesus came. But then when he entered in Jerusalem on that day riding the donkey, the people responded to him just as the prophecy said they would. So that's a directly messianic prophecy. And then another part of directly messianic prophecy is that it may contain elements that exist only in the time of the writer. And so for this, we have Isaiah 7, verses 14 to 16. And this is the prophecy of the virgin birth. Now notice this. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, a virgin will be with child and bear a son, and she will call his name Emmanuel. He will eat curds and honey at the time he knows enough to refuse evil and choose good. For before the boy will know enough to refuse evil and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread will be forsaken. Now, the part about the virgin birth is directly messianic. It refers ultimately to the Lord Jesus. Now, there is debate amongst the commentaries as to whether or not there was another young woman, perhaps Isaiah's wife, or the king's wife, who was going to be with child and bear a son. Now, I don't really want to get into that debate. That's beyond what we want to say today. But the point is, the prophecy obviously refers to Jesus. But then if you look at the verse 16, for before the boy will know enough to refuse evil and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread will be forsaken. So he was talking about the Syrians and the Israelites. He was prophesying to the king of Judah, who was afraid of the Syrians, that's Damascus, and the Israelites, the northern kingdom, were both threatening him militarily. And so before this boy who was to be born would grow up enough to be weaned within that short period of time, those two kings would be deposed, and they were in fact deposed by the Assyrians. And so this is a prophecy that speaks about the Messiah directly, but it includes things that existed only in the time of the writer. And that is verse 16 for certain, existed only in the time of the writer. It has nothing to do with later prophecy or the later events of the birth of the Lord Jesus. And so that's what we're saying here. It may be a directly messianic prophecy, but it can include things that related to the time of the prophet. And as a result, it's still a directly messianic prophecy, but it has other elements in it. The other kind of prophecy regarding the coming king may be indirectly messianic. You'll notice I've got 3 extra parts there in yellow on the screen, and these are from my lecture notes. The other part is from the syllabus. All right, the prophet had in mind some person of his own day who corresponds to the Messiah. So that's Brother Jesse Boyd called that ideally messianic. So the individual that the prophet is referring to represents the Messiah. And so certain ones would be even in a sense, for example, Cyrus, as Isaiah prophesies about Cyrus. And he talks about Cyrus, my servant. And in a sense, now Cyrus was a bad guy. He was a very wicked man. But in a sense, because of some of the things he did, he became an ideal of the Messiah. And so that prophecy is ideally messianic. Now, the prophecy may apply to both the Old Testament and the New Testament. And Jesse Boyd called that ordinarily messianic. So there's certain prophecies. And as I was studying this, I had something in my mind I should have written down as to an example of this. Maybe it'll come to me as I keep talking. But so it'll be something that might apply to the kingdom in the Old Testament as well as the coming kingdom in the New Testament. Maybe that would be an example. And the third point is only some parts of the description are applicable to the New Testament. And so that's partially messianic. And so there's ways in which we look at various prophecies, and they're not exactly an explicit, direct, messianic, future-looking prophecy. Maybe looking right at things happening in the Old Testament, but has some application, or else when you take the aspect that is applying to the Old Testament, it can be idealized, for example, like Cyrus, to represent something about the Messiah. And so prophecy has these two different kinds of characteristics, especially we're talking here about Old Testament prophecies. So the main theme of prophetic revelation is the coming universal kingdom of Jehovah. This includes the coming king, the Messiah, and this includes the subjects of the kingdom, a prepared people. Now that is all Custer's outline, but here's where the S's, I think this inspired, the subject of the kingdom inspired Jesse Boyd to add the other S's, the sovereign of the kingdom, and then the subjects of the kingdom, and then you'll see the last one as we come to it in just a moment. All right, so in the Old Testament, the subjects of the kingdom means the Jews primarily. The kingdom of in the Old Testament is primarily focused on the Jews. I think that we can say that without any doubt. You read those prophecies, almost always talking about my people, the people of God. But nevertheless, prophecies also include the Gentiles. So you'll have little hints about Gentiles as being subjects of the kingdom in the Old Testament. And so a couple examples. Isaiah 42 verse 1, behold my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. And so when we see a reference to the nations, that's referring to them as subjects of the kingdom. And another one in the same chapter, I am the Lord, I have called you in righteousness. I will also hold you by the hand and watch over you, and I will appoint you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the nations. So the subjects of the kingdom are the people prepared by God for the kingdom, primarily Jews in terms of the Old Testament. However, even the Old Testament will include the nations, and we will see that being developed as we go through prophecy and get into New Testament prophecy. We'll see that developed in the New Testament itself. I am getting a note here that says I have 10 more minutes for this meeting, and so we may be cut off and cut short. Just so you know, I'm too cheap to pay right now. We'll see how you like this, and then we will, if we decide we like it, maybe I'll pay, and we'll be able to have a little bit more flexibility. All right, so let's move on to the next S in the theme. The main theme of prophetic revelation is the coming universal kingdom of Jehovah. So we talked about the sovereign and the subjects, and now we're going to talk about the sphere of the kingdom. See, it's amazing. See, these guys who have a gift of alliteration. You know, I'll work away, I'll get two S's or something, and I'm trying to figure out the third one. And some guys, they just rattle it off. I don't know. It's beyond me most of the time. And in a way, maybe it's an affectation. But brother, I keep saying, I was going to say Dr. Boyd. He wasn't a doctor. He had taken all the classwork for his doctorate. He was at New Orleans Baptist Seminary, but he wouldn't bend on some of his theological points, and they refused to give him his doctorate. So he was always Mr. Boyd, but a tremendous Bible teacher nonetheless, or Pastor Boyd. So the sphere of the kingdom, that is the domain. So when we're talking about prophetic revelation, we're talking about not only the people and not only the king, but also the domain, the whole extent of the kingdom. So in Old Testament prophecy, this means especially the land of Palestine. And I'm going to pause. I got a question here from Lee. If you restart a new meeting, do you get a new plug of time? Yes, that is correct. I do. I'm a little queasy about that because we also have technical issues, but we'll just see how we go and how things do with this. Maybe I'll be able to start a new meeting really quickly and bring us all back in. I'll see what I can do as we go along, but it might just be a little bit too much for me, overwhelming. I am an old guy, as you know, and all these young kids can do it real quick, I'm sure, but I am old. So we'll do what we can. Anyway, so the main theme of prophetic revelation is the coming universal kingdom of Jehovah. It includes the domain. This means especially the land of Palestine. And however, it also includes the whole earth. And Kaylee wants us to note that she has her Sunday school planned for 10:30, so we can't go too far past this time because we don't want to eat up Kaylee's time. All right, let's get back to our theme of prophetic revelation. It includes the domain as well. This means especially the land of Palestine. However, it also includes the whole earth. And Habakkuk and Isaiah 11 both refer to that. So we have these two prophecies here. For the earth, Habakkuk says, will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And then Isaiah 11 verse 1, then a shoot will spring from the stem of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. Let's see, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and strength, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord. And he will not judge by what his eyes see, nor make a decision by what his ears hear, but with righteousness he will judge the poor, and decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. So you see that the domain, the sphere of the kingdom, especially in the Old Testament, refers to the land of Palestine, but it does include, just as the Old Testament will hint at the nations and the Gentiles, then the sphere does include the whole earth. Just in little hints like this, and this is one of the things that I think the Jews missed in their understanding of prophecy. Well, I see where we're at in our notes here. And we're really at a breaking point. We're in this thing that is called the excursus on the kingdom. That is entirely something that I got from Jesse Boyd. And so I'm thinking that perhaps maybe this would be a good time to, let's see here now, what am I doing? I'm trying to get I'm not quite sure what to do here. Okay, here's the controls. Now I am trying to manage participants. How if I do that? And I'm going to, at this point, unmute all. How's that? Here we go. Oh dear, we got lots of noise. Somebody's got corona.
Okay.
Oh, that's Lawrence. Lawrence is. Well, Lawrence, are you in China?
No, fortunately, by the Lord's grace, I left January 26th, and I got ready to bail out on the 25th. I jumped on a plane within 9 hours of.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
it was
good.
pretty scary though.
I'm sure. All right. Okay, so I think that what we'll do is we'll stop our study at this time, and we will be in. We'll pick up the excursus next time. And then we'll just go. Now, any comments on the format? How did you find this? Anybody want to say something about that?
It seemed to work pretty good for us. I thought it was good. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
It's nice to see the 13 participants, probably including yourself. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Wolf says format works well. He's just texting me.
Yeah, it seemed to work pretty good at our end here.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got 3 minutes left, and I think that I feel like the only thing with the muting everybody, it does take out, because you can hear now background noise. I have my earphones in, so one of the reasons for that is that when I've been in meetings before, there's a little bit of feedback. So if you're not listening with earphones, you have your speakers going, and your mic will pick up your speakers. So there's a little bit of feedback. So that's just why I've been I did it that way.
Yeah, to cut down on background noise, if you're not planning on talking, just mute yourself, and then everyone can hear without everyone else's background noise.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you can mute yourself, and then if you want to say something, you can unmute yourself and then come in. But I'm just not certain. I sort of muted everybody, and being the controlling person that I am. And
I think that's a better way of doing it. Just mute everyone until it's time for questions, sort of thing.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just see how we do.
If only we had that in the auditorium. I'm just kidding.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Under the participants, there's a place to raise hands too.
Oh, there is. Oh, okay. I see. There's a place on the participants. You can raise your hand somehow.
You're already in my hand.
Okay, go ahead and do. Oh, I see that. Yes. Cal raised his hand. He's like he gets the brownie points. He's the good boy. Gets the gold star. All right. So very good. Well, we're going to.
He raised his hand. Let him ask his question.
Well, he was showing it. He was demonstrating, you see. But you did. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just really like being able to see everybody, because I feel really isolated. So yes. it's so nice.
Especially with me here. But we're going to get cut off in a second here, I think.
We have less than a minute. Okay, so I think I may go ahead and spring for the pause so that we can go a little bit longer next time. But for this time, we'll stop at this point, and I guess we'll all just have to sign off. Kaylee wants to teach her lesson. All right, we will talk to you again next time. But it's good to see each of you. The Lord bless you.